Jai Baba. Nothing is real but God. Nothing matters but love for God. God is the only reality. All else that seems real is illusory. God and I are one. Meher Baba. Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. I just want to know from Rakesh whether I am audible because I have a little problem with my
Yes.
computer. The lines are down. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, lovely. So before we begin, I would like to welcome our dear friend Jeff, who lives in USA. He's the chief caretaker of the Meher Spiritual Center, which Baba called my house, my home in the West. My association with Jeff is from almost early 1970. I'm sure Jeff would remember when we would lodge ourselves. At that time, there was no MPR or even MPC. We used to lodge ourselves in those small cabins, what we call the interview cabins, and we would bicycle all the way from Mehrabad to Mehrazad for the whole day. I'm sure he would remember. Unfortunately, my lines are down, so I'm not able to, project myself on video. So I would like to welcome Jeff, welcome and thank him for accepting our invitation. And I would also like to thank Rakesh for organizing this program. So now over to
Jeff. Jeff, you can unmute yourself. Wait, I'll unmute you.
Okay.
Yeah, you can. We can hear you.
Okay. And what were you going to do the prayer? I mean, I could just start if you want.
I mean, Cyrus just did the prayer. If you wish, you can also do it.
Oh, no, that's okay. Because the office people come here at 8:30, which is in less than an hour. I'll just some of you heard this a while ago, but I'll tell you briefly my story of coming to Baba. I say facetiously, I came to Baba in 3 minutes, and this is how it happened. I was going to college in New York City. I did feel there were deeper things. I did feel that there was a divine destiny for everyone. I at least knew that from experience. But I took an art class in college as an elective, and most of us were painting these kind of boring still lifes. And there was a guy over near me that was somehow got permission to paint pictures of Baba. So he's over there painting, and he didn't tell me much about Baba, but one day he asked me if I would like to go to a Baba meeting. This was back in January of '68. And I didn't normally do things like that, but he was a very entertaining, enjoyable person, and I said yes. And I brought another buddy of mine, and three of us went down to the Little Carnegie Hall. That's where the meetings were held back in those days, going back to the 40s. I think Narina and Elizabeth started Narina Machabelli and Elizabeth started those. And so we headed down in a miserable, cold New York winter evening, and it's on West 57th Street. And hello? Oh, anyway, so the doors open on the 4th floor, and it's a hallway that's about 15 feet wide and 30 feet deep that led into this little recital hall, Little Carnegie Recital Hall. But my impression as I stepped off the elevator is all these old ladies, fat ladies, thin ladies, Jewish ladies, Puerto Rican ladies, African American ladies, and they just came up, introduced themselves, and hugged us, and we were getting hugged one after another after another. It took us about 20 minutes just to get past the ladies, and we got to the men, and they introduced themselves. It took us about a half hour to get actually into the hall. And this is really very unusual for New York City. I mean, people don't just come up to you and spontaneously hug you and introduce themselves. But we were received like three long lost nephews who had shown up at a family reunion. So anyway, eventually we make it into the little hall, and we sat at the back, and this was mainly older people. There weren't so many young people going to these meetings, and many of them, probably most of them, had met Baba. And so I sat there, and they showed a movie of Baba. I can't remember much. I do remember Fred Winterfeld, one of Baba's old followers from the West, who grew up I remember hearing his German accent as he narrated the film. And at the end, they had a period of silence that would last for 3 minutes. And Ella Winterfeld would ring a bell, and they asked us to think of Baba, who was there in India, still on Earth. So I closed my eyes. I mean, I didn't even know who he was. I thought it was kind of laughable that they're asking me in off the street to meditate on their master. But I figured it's only 3 minutes. It's not it's no big deal. So I closed my eyes, but then I thought, well, I'll just open my eyes and look around. And I looked around the room, and it was a very wholesome feeling in the room. I mean, I was not attracted to religious groups, but I think of it, and thinking of it later, this was a room full of independents, actually, that were there for, for this Baba meeting. And I looked around, and I felt a great love. And I looked up at the front of the room, and there was a photograph of Baba on a painting easel that they would bring. I looked up, and suddenly Baba's eyes came alive. And the love in Baba's eyes, I knew that's the love that I suspected was at the core of all of life. I knew that he was God in that instant, and that my whole life was meant to be led for Baba. I mean, up to that point, I didn't think you should follow anybody, but there it happened in an instant. And Baba began looking at everybody in the room with such love. They say, Baba's love glances. And, all these older people, and they have their eyes closed, and they might be thinking, well, I got to catch the subway, and what am I going to do after this? Baba looked at each one, and I could see that each one was his very favorite. I'd never seen anyone look through a room of people where everyone meant the world to him. And in fact, I thought in my mind, oh my God, if they only knew how dearly he loves them. And then gradually Baba's eyes got larger and larger, and Baba was right in front of me. And he let me look into his eyes. And I looked into his eyes. There was no bottom to the love in his eyes. It went on forever. It was so beautiful. The magnificent beauty of his eyes. And the next thing I knew, I didn't know there were other bodies. Baba says there are 3 bodies. I was lifted out of my seat I was lifted up into the being of God. And that's another whole experience. I knew that I had gone to that place, but when I came out of it, I couldn't remember that experience because my memory bank only holds limited things. And that was unlimited. But I found Baba beside me, and down below, about 75 feet, was the room that we were all in. And Baba said that he wanted me to serve his people. And my background was humanitarian. I didn't grow up religious. My background was humanitarian. I said, why just them? Why not every man? But Baba didn't bother to answer that, and he gave me some instructions for my life. And the next thing I knew, the bell was ringing and I was back in my seat. I thought, oh my God. I mean, I was ecstatic. This is the last thing I expected to encounter on a cold, miserable New York winter evening. And when we left there, the three of us, they hoisted me up on their shoulders, and we headed across West 57th Street as the theater crowds were emptying out. That's the theater district. But when we were up there, when I was up there, I thought, we've got to be the three happiest guys on the face of this earth at this moment. I knew that we had run into the everything I was looking for. And so that began my life with Baba. Now, let me say, this happened, this was like, there was so much love in here. It wasn't anything exotic or strange about it. It was just so loving. But then I had a lot of problem. I mean, I was just kind of a imperfect human being. And Baba began converting my selfishness, my temper, my worry, my anxiety, all of that. He began to convert that into love. And that, I can tell you, has not been a sublime experience at all. I mean, so we're all in the same boat. That happened. Some people have had just come very casually to Baba, but however you come to Baba, we're all in the same boat after that. How to become more loving, how to remember Baba in the most pressured situations, how to make him our companion through everything. So that's how it all began for me. And you can unmute everybody if you want, because now, so one of the things that Rakesh mentioned, among other subjects that I might talk about, is how to get from the head to the heart. How does Baba do that? Now, I was around Erich and Darwin Shaw. I lived up near him. He's an old disciple of Baba's from the 30s. And I listened, I asked him a lot of questions. There's a book called Effort and Grace, which is based on a lot of the questions that we asked Darwin. And it's a book that you might be able to get online. But anyway, so how do we get from the head to the heart? Now, you probably remember a fellow named Robert Dreyfus. He was young. He came to Baba, and he met Baba in Marizad in 1965. He was 25 at the time. And he had this overwhelming experience. And when he came back to New York on his way to California, they grabbed him, this Monday night group, the same group I'm talking about, and wanted him to give a talk on his experience of meeting Baba. So they all gathered in the same place, and he was up there in the chair in the front of the room. And they say, well, what was it like to meet Baba? And he said, I went from here to here. And that was the end of his talk. They couldn't get anything more out of him. But to get from here to here is a long journey. It's very hard to stay at the level of the heart. And I can share some things. There are, infinite subtleties to how that's happened, how Baba does that. But I'll share. But one of the things that, you know, when I'm just, this is my own kind of sense of things. When we're born, we're in the soul. But then, as time goes on in our earlier childhood, we're now in our heart. But it's a very expansive, enthusiastic place to be, full of wonder, and children are delightful. And then eventually we start going to school. And that's when they start to educate the mind, the head. And by the time you get through your schooling, most people their base of operations is up here. You know, the world of beliefs and assumptions and theories and a lot of the evaluation of good and bad, right and wrong, spiritual and unspiritual is up here. And all the range in between is up there. And so how is Baba going to get us from here down to here? And of course, I mean, an obvious way for people that aren't necessarily into Baba, someone who's like very up in their head and intellectual, what happens? He gets them to fall in love. And then suddenly they drop, their consciousness drops down to the heart level. And, you know, to be up here in the head, the world of thought is like, I would say, like three-dimensional. The heart is multidimensional. To be up here is like looking through binoculars the wrong way. Everything is very small. But once you come down into the heart, it's like the binoculars are the right way. Everything is up close and personal. It's a much larger world. So this guy who falls in love, he comes down into his heart and then say, suppose a couple of months later, they break up. But now he's had that experience of a much more expansive experience. And just living in the head becomes intolerable. Even as vast as thought is, it's still on the surface. But when you come down to the level of the heart, it has that substance and it has a richness, it's a much freer realm. But unfortunately, there's a positive side and there are negative qualities and positive qualities in the heart. But one of the things that Darwin stressed and Erich is to open up that heart, make it larger, so that you're not up here thinking all the time, you know, with the ticker tape of thoughts going by all day. And what Erich really brought home to me back in the 70s when I was young is bring your consciousness down here and follow your feelings, follow your emotions, not with the mind. Track them. Well, let me say, back up. The journey is in consciousness from the head to the heart to the soul. And it's not like the mind goes on this journey. It's not that the heart goes on this journey. It's our consciousness goes on this journey. So Erich is saying, bring your consciousness from here down to the heart level. Now, it's I'll just say like an example. Say, suppose I insult Jimmy Kahn. So I hurt his heart. Now, what a lot of people do is they will instantly go up into their head and they'll start, planning on how they're going to get back at me. He hurt my heart. And so the mind gets involved in it. Well, what Erich was saying is you got to stay with the hurt in the heart. Follow that hurt, because that hurt is greater than all the strategy and the reaction up here. And so staying at the heart level. Now, to stay at the heart level, to plant the flag of consciousness at the heart level means that we have to there's a lot of joy and enthusiasm and generosity in the heart, but there's all the bad qualities, good, lust, greed, anger, jealousy, and everything. So to stay in the heart, we have to do a certain amount of work of giving those negative qualities, dealing with these negative qualities, how we react to the boss at work, the difficulties we have with interpersonal things, how the bad thoughts we have about ourselves, a low self-esteem. We have now at the heart level, we have to deal with these things. The mind is not able to really empathize with where our heart is. So Baba, of course, one of the things he said to Darwin, give me everything. Give me your pleasures and your pains, your good and your bad. Give it all to me and be free. So Baba is there, and he likes this stuff. He likes us to give him our greed, our impatience, our pride. And Darwin brought that home to us when we were young. And I came up with a way, I don't know if you can relate to it. This is one of millions of ways of doing this, but I would inwardly picture Baba in front of me. And then I would focus on, say, the resentment that I was feeling. And I would spend time feeling that resentment, that hurt and resentment, until I was very conscious of it. And then I would imagine the energy of that flowing to Baba. And Darwin would say, whatever you give to Baba is gone forever. But there's a layer right behind it that looks exactly like the one you gave him. So it seems like nothing, you gave him nothing. There was no result. But be sure that whatever you give to Baba is gone forever. And what Darwin would say is, as you give things to Baba and you give them layer by layer, you make more room for Baba to live in you. You're emptying out a warehouse full of all these past files, of good and bad action, all of that. You're giving it to Baba, and he likes this stuff. I mean, I remember, sometimes I would do that. It would be a half hour. Sometimes I would be days giving something internally that's impeding the flow of my love. And I would hold that out and keep giving it to Baba. And one time I spent 4 months just giving my anxiety to Baba. How ridiculous. But, and I can picture this scene where Baba would say, well, Jeff, what do you have to give me today? Well, I got that old anxiety I've been dealing with for the last 3.5 months. Is it that, the same old stuff? Yeah, Baba, I'm sorry, Well, okay, give it to me. And it creates a camaraderie and a sense of humor with Baba, because we would like to give Baba a nice fresh bouquet of flowers, and we're just, we're stuck giving him the undesirable side of ourselves. And that's the, but eventually over time, Baba gave me this image in a flash. I was with Darwin and Jean, and we were at a cafeteria. Now, I don't know if they have this in cafeterias in India, but they have these dinner plates at the front of the line, and they're spring-loaded, the dinner plate. So you take a plate off, and another one pops up. You take that plate off, and another one pops up. So here, Baba flashes to me. Here, at the time, I was dealing with dread, internal dread. And I said, Baba, Jeff, you're giving me your dread, and you look over, there's no change. You give me another plate full of dread, no change. You give me another, but meanwhile, the stack is diminishing unseen below. I don't know if that metaphor makes sense to you, but we're basically clearing out our interior so that there's more space for Baba to live in there. There's also more space to be able to see these sanskars in front of you, and whether you want to just react from your sanskaric level or whether you want to come up with a loving response. You get some, Darwin talked about creating inner space. The heart has immense space, but for most people in the world, they wake up in the morning and they just jump in the river of sanskars, and at the end of the day, they're 35 miles downstream, you know, and then they wake up again, they dive into the river of sanskars. Well, this is like standing back, getting up on the bank of this river, and then deciding where you want to go, instead of letting your sanskars just run the show. With love, you have more choice. So anyway, I could go on. Let me just see if there was anything else. But anyway, ask some questions. I do better with questions. But it does create, eventually the heart opens and you get more and more space. and you go less up into your head to try to figure things out. You know, for the longest time, especially in our educational system, the mind is the authority. It knows. But really, eventually, that authority has to be overthrown by the heart and its intuition. Baba said intuition is always 100% correct. Accessing the intuition is our problem. But at the inner level, we can start feeling our way through life rather than thinking our way through life. Anyway, any questions?
Jeff,
Yeah.
this is Jimmy Khan.
Yeah.
Like me, you've been an old timer. You've met all of the Mandli, let's say, of the 60s, 70s, whatever.
Yeah.
But over the years, they have gone. Physically, they are no more. And I've been observing more and more Indians, more and more Westerners. They seem to be going less and less to Merazad, saying, what is left at Merazad? What is left at Merazad? What do I do there? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Some people say, I'll say, have you been to Merazad? And they say, yeah, I went. And you're not going this week? You know, it's like they've gone to the Ellora Caves and they've already done that, so they don't need to go again. But Baba is meeting people where they are. I mean, these places are invaluable. I feel they are concentrations of Baba's divine impressions. But some people, they're experiencing him within, and the outer is not, especially the young people, the outer doesn't mean as much as it did to us. Even knowing Baba's life, the details of Baba's life, we poured through all of that. We learned all about Baba's life and what he did here and what he did there. And they are not as interested in that. It's a different phenomenon. But one thing, when I go to Mehrabad, I'm so impressed by all the young people from Pune and Bombay, because they are asking the same kind of questions that we ask the Mandali. They want to know, they want to know these, what it was like to be with Baba, or what's the inner life is like. How can it be developed? I'm very heartened by that. Bill LePage asked Erich, what's going to happen in the next 700 years? And Erich said, all of his close ones and his Mandali will be coming back. So the era of the Mandali is not ended, because they are here amongst us. They're back. And they will, and his close ones. So who are all these people on the screen? A lot of them are Baba's old close ones that have come back. So the era of the there's a party after the party of the Mandali, and then there's a party after that. There's going to be party after party until Baba comes again. We will keep bumping into each other. That's my feeling, and that's what Eric said. So sometimes they think, oh, wow, the era of the Mandali is over. Well, some of these young people are his old Mandali or his old close ones, and here they are again. So it's very vibrant, I would say. Any other questions?
Jeff, hi, Delma here.
Yeah.
Jeff, you spoke about anger and how, how would you have reacted to a situation if someone kind of repeatedly upset you at your workplace or something like that? How would you react? How would you take it from your heart?
Yeah, I know that. I know that experience. I mean, of course, all these things that happen to us that are unpleasant can become gifts to give to Baba. So these people are stirring up your anger. Rather than just sitting on the anger, hey, you have something you can give to your beloved. And believe me, this means the world to him. You know, that you kind of haltingly hold this stuff out to him. So that's one thing that you can do. You can be giving that to Baba, and it's a concrete thing. You're not saying, oh, what should I do in following Baba? There you've got this anger on your plate, and that can be given to Baba. At the same time, you want to get some space between you and your anger so that you can, instead of reacting with anger back or some subtle form of anger, you have some space there where you can kind of come up with a loving response. You know, I mean, you might be able to just hold their image of them in Baba's presence. You can actually try to send love to them, Baba's love to their hearts. I mean, there are a great many ways, but just because you're going to react to people, there are going to be negative responses, and those can, like I say, can all be gifts. But at the same time, we can try to come up with a counter response, which doesn't, which doesn't like create new problems with that person. And they may not change. They may just go on being the same way, unless they will stay the same way unless they receive a greater love. You know, we kind of tend to stay in the same small holding pattern until we encounter someone who has a larger holding pattern. And but otherwise, I mean, I've had people around that just don't change. So then I'm stuck. I have to do the changing. There's one thing that Baba said to Arnavas. It's a very unfortunate truth. Baba said, "It is nothing to give in when you are wrong, but it has spiritual value to give in when you are right." That's, it's nothing to give in when you are wrong, but it has spiritual value to give in when you are right. That's a painful truth. And all of this is, a lot of that internal work will pay off with Baba. You will be freed up gradually over time, but don't look for, Erich used to say about spiritual progress. He would say it's very, 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 very gradual. 4 varies. Now, Americans would never tolerate that. Maybe very, very gradual, but it's very slow. But the giving to Baba creates a camaraderie with him. eventually the process of giving things to Baba becomes more fulfilling than if this relationship with your boss or fellow worker was completely harmonized. You follow?
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Jeff, Cyrus here.
Yeah.
If you recollect, we were in Mehrazad Mandli Hall, yourself, Merwan, Soumya, myself, and maybe one or two more.
Yeah.
And at that time, you narrated a very, very beautiful incident about that lady who was in the gas chamber.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Would you like to repeat that? And the
Okay.
importance of Baba's prayers that Baba had instructed the women Mandli to
Yeah.
do during the war.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. This. Okay. Here's. Yeah. When I first came to work at the center, you know, women would ask, not just the Baba women, but women in general, you know, would ask, what is Baba doing? What was he doing with the women, Mandali? I mean, they're up on the hill behind this, you know, wall, no contact with the outer world. They couldn't see men. Mara couldn't even hear the voice of a man. Is this just a reenactment of the Muslim purdah? You know, I mean, where they keep women out of sight. And I didn't feel comfortable by saying, oh, well, that's just Baba's way. I had to get an answer to this. So I put before Baba, you know, I need to know some way to answer this, because this is an understandable question for a woman to ask. And I just didn't feel like, oh, well, it's all a mystery. That wasn't going to work. So years went by, and on one of my trips to India, I went up to Sikori. And, you know, it's a very peaceful environment. There were all these nuns. Some of them had been there with Upasani, and now they were with Gadavri Mai. But it's a very peaceful atmosphere. And while I was there, I got a book of Upasani Maharaj's discourses. And in there, one of the discourses was on the relationship of husband and wife in the Hindu society. This was back in the time of probably 1910 or something like that. And in that, he talks about the three types of impressions that you're probably all familiar with. They're the sattvic impressions, which are the innocent and pure and lighter impressions. They're the rajasic impressions, which you pick up, they're heavier, that you encounter when you work out in the world. And of course, they're the tamasic impressions of lust, greed, and anger and all that. But he said that the wife embodies the sattvic impressions. And it's appropriate the children grow up in an innocent and pure and lighter atmosphere. And the husband goes off to work and he picks up the heavier rajasic impressions. And when he comes home, his impressions are dissolved in the atmosphere that the wife creates and the children create. He said that's the complementary relationship of husband and wife in that Hindu society of that time. But then he said, these women here, he had 72 nuns around him who led a very secluded life. He said, these women here perform that same function for the world. And the heavy impressions of the world come here and they are transmuted spiritually. Does that make sense? But this function was unknown to them, but they are, those impressions are heavier impressions of the world are brought there. And they, in that pure atmosphere, they are transmuted. So then for some years I gave that as an explanation. That I said that might be the possibility of what Baba was doing with the women up on Upper Mehrabad. And then a few years later, there's There was a woman from Colorado, and she had a past life recollection. She wasn't a Baba person. She had a past life recollection of herself being in the gas chamber, being gassed. And she saw it all vividly. And they were all on their knees or gathered in families saying prayers until the gas finally killed them all. Then they were lifted all together. They were lifted to this place where above they could see down below. There was a beautiful kind of hillside and a few buildings. And from down below, there was a chant that was coming up, a very heavenly chant, and it was very healing. And then they all went on to the next phase of the afterlife. So then a year later, someone told her about Baba, and she came over to Mehrabad and checked in. And on her way up the hill, she recognized this is the place that we all came to from the concentration camps, from the gas chambers. And as she came up the hill, she recognized this was the place. As she came to closer to Baba's tomb, the women mandala used to come every 2 weeks to the tomb to pay their respects to Baba. When she approached the tomb, they were singing that same chant that they experienced as they were being carried over Mehrabad, the 7 names of God. The women mandala were singing it. She was just broke down. And so, I remembered that Baba used to have the women mandala during the war years sing the 7 names of God in the morning and in the evening. They would sing that. And so, wow, this seemed like, boy, this is a real confirmation for me that's the work that Baba was doing. They were coming. And Baba, the heaviness of the concentration camps was being transmuted by the women on the hill, even though they weren't aware of this higher purpose. Then a few years later, a woman came to the center, and she told me, Mara had once said that all the people from the concentration camps came through the upper room. Now, she assumed that was Marazad. But Baba didn't start staying at Marazad until 1944. But I think Mara was talking about the upper room at Mehrabad, up on the hill. And all of the all of the heaviness of the world was coming there and being transmuted. So, and it's interesting because Baba said, Erich used to say in Mandala Hall, rare thing that Erich would ever say about historical happenings, but he felt that 70% of the Western Baba lovers came through the concentration camps. It was kind of an extraordinary thing, but I heard him say it on a number of occasions. Yeah. You said, and you used to say too, that 65% of the Western Baba lovers are very angry, and they have no idea how angry they are. So I assume that maybe 5% forgave their victimizers. But there's a lot of anger I would say in Westerners, and maybe in all of us, that has to be given to Baba so that it doesn't influence our life so profoundly.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jeff,
Soumya, Jeff, 1 minute. Soumya, you would like to sing that song, that prayer, which they sang the 7 name of God?
Oh, yeah.
That would be so nice.
Rakesh, 1 second. Before Soumya talk, interestingly, today is the day, 93 years back. That is on 16th June 1927. Baba has given the 7 names of this thing.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
today, luckily, Jeff is also on this day. He was present, and by virtue of Baba's will or Baba's grace, he spoke about this in the speech.
In
Now,
fact, Merchant spoke to me this morning saying that this is, I said, why don't you come in and speak? He said, no, I don't want to speak. So thank you, Merchant, for coming in. Thank
and
you,
even
Baba.
before, first
Yeah.
of all, in the April 1924, Baba
Yeah.
originally given Khuda Paramatma Ram Allah God or must.
Yes.
And during the afternoons, Baba used to ask the Mandali to sing for 1.5 hours. Then it is followed by Baba's Aarti Baba, which was written in the Kabza pen. And then it was modified, a second version that was given on 16th June 1927, Khuda Paramatma Ram, Khuda Paramatma Allah God or must Isda.
Thank you.
God. That's one. Now
Thank
you
you,
can.
Merchant. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
So I think we'll go ahead.
Hari
Mahatma
Allah
Ahuramat God Yazdahu Hari Paramatma Allah Ahuramat God Yazdahu Hari Paramatma Allah Ahuramat God Yazdahu Ahuramat God Yazdahu Hari Paramatma Allah Ahuramat God Yazdahu. Avtar Meher Baba ki jai.
Okay.
Thank you, Baba. Go
Thank
ahead,
you.
Jeff. Jeff, go ahead.
Well, any other questions?
Yeah, Jeff Junior again.
Yeah.
Did Baba say anything on past life regression? The folly of doing it.
Well, if it helps to untangle some emotional complex, it can be valuable. Just to pursue it for its own sake, it could be beneficial, but then you have to be careful. But sometimes it comes unbidden. Like, I mean, I'll give you an example in my own case. I used to be, I wouldn't be here giving this whatever Zoom session. I was terrified. I hated to speak publicly. Believe me. Not only that, I had a pathological fear of it. And I would have to do it over the years, and I would just agonize it for months in advance. And so on one time when I went to Atlanta and I gave there was a whole weekend there, and I was being brought back to the, I tried to give this to Baba for years and years and didn't get any real substantial change, a little bit. But as I was being taken back to the airport, this fellow was talking about, he was connected with the Holocaust Museum there in Atlanta. And the subject of the Holocaust came up. And as he was saying goodbye to me, I flashed. I saw myself back as like a teenager somewhere in front of two menacing interrogators. And I had to give an account. I was probably like, say, with the French Resistance or something, could have been something else, but I had to give my delivery letter perfect, no mistakes. If I did, I would die, but not only that, everybody linked with me would die. And in giving my account, I faltered and stumbled. And so this was created such a horrible impression on me that I was responsible because I couldn't deliver this, what I was supposed to say, letter perfect. These two menacing guys found me out and found the whole network I was connected with. So recovering that, I didn't seek that out, but it came to me. And being able to go to that place in myself and seeing it, I got to the root of that and gave that to Baba. And otherwise you wouldn't see me here in front of this screen. It reduced my anxiety tremendously. So sometimes these past life recollections can help to undo, you might say sanskaric or emotional complexes that can't be got at sometimes through our external life. And it's hard to stir it up, it's hard to stir it up in yourself when you have nothing to go on. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Anaita had a question. Anaita?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, she disappeared.
I'm Aban here.
Okay.
Aban?
I would like to ask one question that just now you said that the past life all of a sudden came to as a flash when
Yeah.
you were in it, but you did not go for it
Right.
purposely to know what it was. So I would like to know that is it correct if people go to those saints and peers and other people to find out? Is it correct? Would Baba like it?
No, I would discourage it. I mean,
Okay.
sometimes Baba people do, but Baba is right there with you, working with you personally. And you're going to get, he's going to expose you to as much as you need to know. It's a very gradual process. So, and he has the perfect knowledge of how to open you up.
So if it comes naturally, it's okay, but you should not go to seek for it.
Right. That's just my view.
But I think Baba also had the same view.
Yeah, Baba basically said, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Good. Yeah.
Jeff, may I come in for a minute, Jeff?
Yeah.
To what Aban said, I was at Merabat once, and Baba Lava came up to me in whatever context, and he said that he went through what Aban mentioned. He paid someone, he went to a class for knowing his past life. And to his dismay, he found out that in his past life, he was an SS officer in Germany.
Yeah.
And he shot a Jew point blank. He saw this.
Yeah.
And in this life, he just can't come to terms with his past. So he's in a very emotionally bad situation. Maybe that brought him to Baba. I just thought I'll share with you.
Yeah. It's, I mean, it's not just specifically, I mean, there are so many ways that we get freed up from these things. And it isn't, but Baba kind of does give guidelines on that. But some people have gone outside the guidelines and did get some help. But you want to try to get to the present and live fully in the present. And if you had all of the videotapes of your past lives, you would kind of be interested in it for about 2 weeks, and then you'd say, "Ah, heck with it. I'm going to get back to the present." Truly. I found that, yeah. Hey, well, it looks like it's, we're getting here toward the end here. But the office people have come in. But I'm just saying my experience, Baba loves and adores all of us, no matter what. We may find that other people don't enjoy our company because of our personality or our bristliness and everything, but Baba thoroughly enjoys our company. And just like a mother will enjoy her child, even if the child is in some way deficient, maybe even retarded, the love is there. So Baba loves us all. And he accompanies us personally. I don't know how he does it, but he does. And we and the more we can enjoy his company, or enjoying our company, the better. And it's I found that self-acceptance is much closer to where I want to be with Baba than self-improvement. Self-improvement is kind of endless, but self-acceptance that Baba would like me as I am, doesn't he have any taste? Doesn't he have any discrimination? But he does. He loves all of us as we are. Yeah. And to accept that is our challenge in our work, I would say. So wonderful to see you folks. And, sometime if you want, we didn't kind of go into going from the head to the heart very much, but that's a beautiful area to investigate from all of you, because there are those things that we're dealing with, the challenges, and it's great for them to come up and be seen.
Jai Baba.
Yeah. Okay. Much love, folks.
Thank you, Jeff. On behalf of
Yeah, Oshan and her Bobby saying
Center, I would
love
like
and
to
Jai
thank
Baba.
you for accepting the offer. Very interesting and intelligent talk. Thank you
Yeah.
very much once again, Jeff. And before we close, tomorrow, as I had promised that we'll be doing those clutter, I would be removing the clutter, but actually I have one more chapter to finish tomorrow from the same book, and I'll be doing the clutter clearing on Friday. That's for our usual
Okay.
Participants. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you.
Jai Baba.
Thank you.
Jai
Baba.
Baba.
Avtar
Thank you,
Meher
Jai.
Baba ki Jai.